No one is better at hiding their darkness and their trauma identification than someone that looks seemingly happy. I'm Giselle Baumet. Welcome to the newly renamed Alchemy of Success, where we take neuroscience and spirituality to give you an integrated approach to inner wellness and in turn, outer wellness, so that you can maximize your success in life in whatever way that looks for you. For years, I've found pockets of happiness in various things. A lot of the things that I used to do were a distraction from really looking within, because I could rarely, if ever, be by myself. If I was by myself, that meant I had to face what was within, and it wasn't good. It was dark, and it was a lot of attachment to my trauma. It was a lot of fears. It was a lot of abandonment issues. It was a lot of, I can't make it on my own. And when I look back at those years, I also think about, wow, I also didn't have habits in place that would have helped me in any way. Like, I was really good at helping others. I was really good at pouring into my children. I was really good at building my business. I was really good at building community. But if you took those things away, I would have had nothing, because inside it was literally just me borrowing happiness and borrowing love from other people because I didn't have it myself. I want to talk about some of the initial things that I did to create and manifest a life of inner wellness that then created a life of outer wellness. I remember that it all started when I learned that thoughts create. And I just thought to myself, if that's true, let's make believe that that is true. And if it is true, then does that mean that when I had autonomy, when I became, a young adult, that from that moment on, every thought that I was having was creating my reality? And if that's true, then look at how good I was at creating realities that I didn't necessarily always liked. So I kind of just took ownership of that. Like, I took accountability of that. And at first it was jarring because it was a lot easier for me to be in the victim mentality, to kind of blame my circumstances and how I was raised and my trauma and you name it on my reality. And so when I didn't have that, when I didn't have like the blaming to do, like I wasn't able to like blame it on everything else because now I had autonomy, but I was still there. Then it was like, oh, okay. Then I had to take radical accountability. From that moment on, it was like, all right, how do I overcome this? How do I get to a place that if I look within, I like what I see and I feel good? And I'm not just playing a persona of someone who's really happy. And because talk therapy was something not familiar to me, I grew up in more of ancestral practices, and just conceptually, it didn't make sense to me to just sit with someone and just talk about my past. I decided instead I would go to the root. I wanted to find, all right, like, where did this all come from? And at that point is when I was introduced to hypnotherapy, which was foreign to me. But when a friend explained it to me, I'm like, that kind of makes sense. I'm not just going to be talking about my past. I'm going to actually go into those core memories and find the source. Because at that time, I felt if I could get to the root, I can start to make changes. And sure enough, that's what happened. Honestly, hypnotherapy was what started the whole process for me. So much so that eventually I became a hypnotherapist myself. And I sprinkled it into the programs that I offer. But through that process, I also had to change how I was living my life. Started to do things like mirror work and journaling and tapping into my intuition, which was completely lost to me. Like, I just at that time had no idea how to tap into it. And I started to even make smaller changes, like moving my body, finding a hobby that allowed me to move my body. I started to look at how I'm eating, because a lot of what was trapped in my body started to show up in my skin, for example. I started to break out because our body will hold our trauma. So I had to look at my foods, as well as the somatic movements, as well as the subconscious work. While it sounds like a lot, I was able to make a significant transformation in a matter of months. And I just started to put ancestral holistic practices in place and rewiring my brain, just all doing self practices and a lot of learning to be able to not associate anymore with my trauma. My trauma went from being like really big to me and a core identity of who I was to fading away. Like I'm not attached to it. It doesn't have an effect on me anymore. It's completely neutralized. In addition to working with like my subconscious beliefs and shifting them from the subconscious level and the somatic practices that I was doing, I also started to do core practices throughout the day. I'll give you 3 that you can do. For example, 1 was I stopped reading the news first thing in the morning. Why? Because your body, when you feel and you visualize something, your body doesn't know time. So it feels itself in that. So right away, when I was reading the news, I was already starting my day as if I was in war. Even if I wasn't consciously aware of that, my subconscious was. I started visualizing in the morning how I wanted my day to be. A second core practice was gratitude, because I realized that at all times in my life, even when I had very, very little, I still had something to be thankful for. For example, when I was younger and we didn't have food all the time, I had a clothing set that I could put on, realizing, okay, maybe I didn't have a lot, but I always had something to be grateful for. Because even when I didn't have a lot, I still had something. And so I decided, all right, I'm going to start focusing on what is good in my life. That's a gratitude practice. It's really just being in gratitude, feeling good about the things that are good in your life. And there's always something good in your life, even if it's I have clothes and I have a roof over my head. But that practice, because again, your brain doesn't know time, your body doesn't know time, and you're basically just coming back to spiritual realignment, you start to produce those feel-good feelings. You start to give your brain dopamine. You start to increase your serotonin. And spiritually, you start to realign yourself back to your true essence. I still do that practice today. I still do it. And I know it's so easy to take for granted the things that you have and to not really think about the things that are going good, because we tend to focus a lot more on what's not going good. We have to discipline ourselves to come back to remembrance of what is going good in life. This has been proven by research. Literally, just 5 things that you name each day can increase your happiness in less than 8 weeks. Another core practice that I still do that was definitely a game changer for me was learning how to meditate. I have a video on meditation for real people, because a lot of what I thought was meditation was holding me back from actually being able to meditate. So once I realized I can meditate however I wanted to meditate, then I was more comfortable with it and I was able to progress. That practice alone has rewired my brain, has allowed me to see opportunities, has really kept me in sustainable happiness compared to what my life was before. I give you more completely free. I have a workshop that is called Becoming a Happier Human that talks about additional practices. And I have a guide called the Neuroscience and Spiritual Manifestation Method. So consume those 2. They're very short to consume. Put those into practice and your life can start to change. From whether you are someone who's still attached to your trauma or you're someone who's not attached to your trauma, maybe even very successful, but you don't feel inside the way that you want to feel, which I work with a lot of people in my community like that. I tend to work with really ambitious people. Truly, what I'm wanting you to get from this is that you deserve to feel good in life. You deserve to feel good inside. And that the quicker that you detach from the beliefs, the trauma, the wounds, the hurt, or the perspectives that are not allowing you to feel good inside, the sooner you can start creating a life that is successful, not just on the outside, but successful within. And I'm proof of that. I know that if I was able to do it, so can anyone else. And I know also because the people that I work with, I see the transformations them as well. Remember this. You are majestic, period. You are whole and complete, period. You shed those layers, you come back to remembering all of that.